my name is Jacqueline Morgan, and today. That is loud, isn't it?
Hopefully not drop anymore. That's not gonna happen. Oh my god, like
So I'm excited to get started. So let's get this party on our show. Get this party on the show? Get this party started, get the show on the road. There we go. Hello, my name is Jacqueline Morgan, and today we are going to be making tomato sauce. We have two recipes that we are going to be working from. The first is the Taste of Home homemade canned spaghetti sauce, and the other is actually a recipe I got from our neighbor up the street. So it is an Italian family recipe, so I'm very excited to try it. Both recipes call for 25 pounds of tomatoes.
It's empty.
It's empty? Okay.
I need some water.
I'll get you some water. Hold tight. And I'm back. So both recipes call for 25 pounds of tomatoes. I don't know about your garden, but mine, I have about 5 or 6 tomato plants, and while it does not produce 25 pounds of tomatoes in a day until it's like in its heyday peak producing season in August, it will give me a good amount of tomatoes a couple days in a row. So before I run out of countertop space or fridge space, or the tomatoes get past their prime and they get overripe, I have a little tip and trick to share with you, and that is freezing your tomatoes, which is awesome. So I will show you how to cut those, but the point is that we're going to be cutting the stem off, any bad spots, and maybe the blossom part if it looks a little too ooky. You wanna come up here? And then we're gonna be popping those bad boys onto a baking sheet, and then once they are frozen, we're gonna transfer them into bags, measure the bags, put the pounds on the bags, and then you can stick them in your freezer. And once you reach how many pounds you need for your recipe, you can easily pull them out, put them in your sink with hot water, and that skin will just peel right off. Many times the recipe might tell you that you need to blanch your tomatoes, which is where you're cutting the stem part off, you're boiling water, you're dropping the tomatoes in the boiling water for a few seconds, I forget how long it is, and then you're taking them out, you're putting them in ice water, and you're putting your hands in the ice water to peel the skin off. I tried that once, and I'm not about that life. I'm about the freezer life. The awesome thing about the freezer life is that if it takes me 2 weeks to get 25 pounds of tomatoes, I have 2 weeks, and my tomatoes aren't going rotten. If you need to blanch them, these puppies are sitting in your fridge or on your countertop until you are ready to blanch them, because you can't blanch frozen tomatoes. So it's the freezer life for me, haha. So I will show you how we are going to cut those tomatoes, how we're going to freeze them, and then how we're going to process them once they are frozen to get the skins off. And then at one point in the video, I am going to use a food strainer for part of the recipe, just to kind of show you what the difference is between having your tomatoes frozen and then peeling the skin off and then putting them in a food processor and processing them that way, versus them being straight from the garden, not peeling them, not skinning them, not doing anything at all, and putting them straight in a food strainer. And we're gonna see what the juice looks like difference-wise. So I'm excited to get started. So let's get this party on our show. Get this party on the show? Get this party started, get the show on the road. There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Careful. As far as cutting these tomatoes for the freezer, all we need to do for these cherry tomatoes is cut the stem side off, because the blossom side will just easily peel right off whenever we put the frozen tomatoes into the hot water. So we're just gonna do a couple of those. As for the big tomatoes, we can either slice the top like this and then take out a core if we need to, if it looks a little too chunky in there. And then the blossom side, we're just gonna slice off quickly and easily. Whenever that baking sheet is full of tomatoes, we're gonna plop that in the freezer, wait about half a day to a day, and then we're gonna take them out and use either a freezer bag or reusable freezer safe containers. Put our frozen tomatoes in, and we can measure out the weight. That way we know exactly how much we need, and then whenever the recipe comes up and we have a day we can just take out the amount of pounds that we need from the freezer and go about our day. Okay, so once you have put your tomatoes on a tray and you popped them in the freezer and they're pretty frozen or completely frozen, and you have put them in your bags with your pounds marked on them, and you have enough pounds to make your sauce, and you pull them out, we're ready for the next step. Sounds like a lot of steps, but trust me, it's not like crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pour these into hot water in the sink. But look at how satisfying this is. Oh, just take the skin right off, put that in your pot. Oh, these little cherry tomatoes, I could peel those all day. So let's see if these bigger ones have softened up a little bit more. Oh yeah, see? It's just peeling right off. And if something gets stuck a little bit, you can try and peel it off with your nail to get underneath of it. But there you go. And you didn't have to fool with the hot boiling water and the ice water. See, to me, I'd much rather stick my hands in warm water than ice water. Now that I got my 25 pounds of tomatoes all done, peeled, and in the stock pot, I have concluded that it is 9 o'clock at night and I am going to bed. I am not going to add any more ingredients to these until the morning time. So that is when we will do our peppers and onions, tomato paste, and all that stuff. So, good times. I will see you in the morning. Toodles. See my sunflowers? I'm so proud of them. I planted them this year and they have grown really, really, really tall. Like if I stand down here, whoop, they go way up. We are going to go out to the garden to go collect some tomatoes because I'm about 7 pounds short for my second batch. Just getting some cherry tomatoes off of this plant. We finally had a little bit of rain last night. Got some more tomatoes. Oh, golly days. And we are ready to go make some more sauce. Hopefully not drop anymore. That's not gonna happen. Oh my golly. Ah! All right, we'll see you inside. We got our kitchen scale, so we're gonna make sure we have the missing 7 pounds. 7 pounds on the dot. In my bowl, weighs a half a pound. So there you go. 7.5 pounds minus the bowl. We got 7 pounds. Woohoo! Now we're gonna wash and dry them. Not dry them. We're not gonna dry them. We're just gonna wash them. The kiddos just got up, so I gotta make them breakfast real quick before we start this whole tomato batching. Kiddos are fed. I can move on. So I didn't have the counter space, so I just pulled out a drawer and put my pot in there. We're gonna cut these puppies into slices, into quarters, drop them in the hopper. Okay, we got some tomatoes coming out. That's all the pulp. But only push so far. And then get new stuff. So I just finished up with the electric mixer, so I will tell you my thoughts as I show you what the output looks like. Here is what the sauce looks like. It's a little foamy. See the consistency? Now I will compare this to what we get from the food processor from the whole tomatoes. All right, here we go. I got my food processor loaded up with the tomatoes. Got my little cover in there. Then we can just pulse it. That is loud, isn't it? You can just go to whatever desired chunkiness you want. And we're just gonna pour that into the pot. And we're gonna just keep on rolling. So here's the difference between the sauce that we've made so far. This is the frozen and then put through the food processor. So it's a little chunkier, a little meatier. And then over here is the tomatoes that were raw that got put through the KitchenAid mixer food strainer. So now the recipe calls for 4 large green peppers. Oh, the onions are already starting to get me. That's fun. We're just gonna take out the seeds.
I'm gonna take out the seed.
And I'm just gonna pop that in the food processor. Or if you don't have a food processor, you can always chop them by hand. So now I'm just gonna pulse this up until it's the consistency that I want. It's smaller chunks, but it's still not big enough that the kids are gonna complain when they see it. All right, so now I'm cutting up the remaining onions. I needed 4 green peppers and 4 onions. One day when I was making bread and butter pickles, I think I had to chop up 8 onions. Boy, were they potent. It's just because of the onions, baby. I'm not upset, I swear. So the next time I had to cut up all these onions, I put on my daughter's swim goggles that had little toucans on the side. That would have been great for this video, but I couldn't find them. She found the goggles! Juliana, you found the goggles! Say good job. That's very sweet, baby. So these are the toucan goggles. But as silly as they will look, they work. We are going to put these onions over into the pot and then add some spices and some sugar and salt and oil, a quarter cup of canola oil, a quarter cup of salt, 2/3 cup sugar, 2 cans of tomato paste. Give that a nice little stir around. This was our 3 onions and our 4 hot peppers. Oh,
I'll help you.
you want to help me?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go for 1 cup. There we go.
Famous.
Yeah, we got it.
The famous.
Yeah, so we did a cup of olive oil.
What's on there?
I ran out of space in my other pot,
What's
so
on there?
tomato sauce.
What's on there?
More tomato sauce. Okay, so that was a cup of olive oil, a teaspoon of basil, a tablespoon of oregano. So I put the last of the 8 cans of tomato paste in the sauce, and I'm going to cook it for 2 hours. It is almost 11 o'clock, so I'm about an hour behind what I thought I was going to be at this point. But my goal is to still process this Italian family tomato sauce recipe. So put it in the water bath canner for the 40 minutes that it needs, and then by the time that it's done and it does its 5-minute seal at the end, it should be time to then water bath can the Taste of Home batch. So fingers crossed, we're just gonna keep stirring today and batch processing. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll see you in a bit. Simmering sauces, messy countertops. Oh boy. Now I'm gonna clean this all up while the sauce continues to cook. And we are back to a normal kitchen.
Hey, I want to eat this cookie people.
All right, we have reached the amazing point in time where we are going to finally can our tomato sauce. I have water going, filling up my water bath canner over in the sink, and I'm about to unpack the jars and show you that whole process. So here we go. All right, we are going to start this oven to 225, a cookie sheet to place the jars on. My water pot is full of water. Oh, it's so heavy. So we're gonna put that on top of the stove, and we're gonna turn that bad boy on high and put the lid on so it heats up faster. You can use brand new jars or jars that you've had previously. The only thing you cannot reuse are what's called lids. Jar, your lid, and your ring. So your jar and your ring you can reuse year after year, so long as there's no cracks or broken pieces, chips, or anything like that. These you have to rebuy every year. The reason you want to buy these every year is because whenever you unseal them, you may put just like the tiniest little fraction in the rubber part or the sealer band part, and that will cause your jars for next year to not seal correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our jar on the cookie sheet, get out a little pot to put the lids in. So they're going to be in there for about 20 minutes. Now for this pot full of lids that we have, we're going to add some water, and we're going to bring this to a simmer. Now I'm going to set up my workstation. I kind of do everything on the island because I'm away from the stove. I put my rings up in the far corner. I get some hot pads. So I'm going to put 2 hot pads on my cutting board for the jars when they come out of the oven. I'm going to put a hot pad here for my sauce and a hot pad right there for my lids. Now I need to get my tools. I've got 3 things. This is a jar lifter. So this little bad boy is dual purpose. Once you put all your food inside your jar, you slide this in there to move the food around and get any air bubbles out and raisin to the top. And then this part is a magnet that you're going to stick into the hot water and get one of your lids out so you can put it on top of your jar. Here's a funnel. This is what you're going to use to fill your jars so that you don't get whatever hot liquid you're using all over the place, because that's not fun. The reason that we heat up the jars first, there are 2 reasons. One is to help sterilize the jars. The second reason that we heat them up is because we are putting hot liquid inside of them. So if you have a cold jar or room temp jar and you put hot water or hot liquid inside, then the chances are that the bottom is going to come out of the jar, or the whole jar is just going to crack and break pretty high. So we always want to try and keep our jars hot and work as quickly as possible when we process these. I've taken my sauce off the stove and I put it here on the hot pad. I have a nice clean rag that's a little wet to wipe the rims off. Sometimes with recipes for tomato sauce, it depends on what kind of tomatoes you're using and how much and all of that, but the acidity will vary with the tomatoes. So just to make sure that there's acid in each jar, take some lemon juice and pour in the bottom. So I'm going to put in my funnel And we're gonna start filling the jars. All right, another thing we are going to talk about is headspace. Sauces require different headspaces. I'm leaving about 1 inch of headspace up at the top. See that? About 1 inch, which is about the neck of the bottle. So now I'm taking my rag and I'm wiping around that rim, making sure that there is no sticky spots that are going to impede this lid from sealing. I take a ring and you are just going to finger tighten. So just a little half turn, that's it. You do a fun little woo to get it on there and then just a little half turn. So now I'm going to just plop this on over into my water bath canner. So that way it's getting that steam, the bottom part's in the water so it's staying hot. And we are gonna keep on going. It fits 7 quarts in my water bath canner. So now we're just going to use the handles and drop this. So I got the water level down to where I'd like it. I'm gonna keep the burner on high. I'm gonna put this lid on there so that the jars can come to a full rolling boil. Once that happens, then I start my timer for 40 minutes. And we are going to process them and then move them off of the burner and let the jars set for 5 minutes to kind of self-seal. And then we'll be moving them onto the countertop with our handy dandy jar lifter. And that's where they will set until they have completely cooled. All right, so I removed the water bath canner from the heat, so I'm gonna lift the jars up and out so that they can sit there and cool off a little bit. You hear that popping? It means that they're sealing. It's a wonderful sound. And while they are sitting there for their 5 minutes, I have already pulled out the jars from the oven that have been heating. Since my water bath canner can fit 7, we're gonna fill up 7 with the lemon juice. And we are gonna go ahead and fill these puppies up. I have my folded up towels on the countertop ready to go for those jars. I'm gonna take these. We're gonna give them some space between each other. We don't wanna pack them in, that way they cool off.
Hold on tight.
Well, we did it. We have 14 quart jars here and 4 more that are finishing in the water bath canner. I had to take a little break and run over and let my parents' dogs out. So let's see, we started at 7 a.m. and it is now 6 o'clock minus an hour, so 7 to 5 we've been cooking, plus the hour and a half last night. Canning is definitely a labor of love. So now it is on to making dinner. And tomorrow, I'll be pickling those cantaloupes. So we'll see how that goes too. See ya.